Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Story number 1. Humans are a tribal people. Written by Erebos Yeet. Humans are a tribal people. I knew this before I ever saw any. It had been drilled into our heads a countless amount of times. Be careful, don't antagonize. Tribal races are dangerous. Pictures were shown of what humans had done to people who weren't part of their tribe. They had pillaged, they had murdered so many sentients. The part that shocked me the most was that most of their history, most of the humans weren't even part of their tribe. And thus, for centuries, the humans killed each other. They are a tribal people, and tribal people are dangerous. Naturally, the first time I saw a human, I was terrified. I was only 11 souls. The station I lived on had been attacked by the Antaraxi pirates. My parents had hidden me in a small cabinet and told me to keep quiet until they returned. They never did. I don't really remember my time in there. What I do remember is my hunger conquering my fear. I remember roaming through many empty halls. I remember the bodies. The longer I wandered, the more I started to hear. In the distance, there were gunshots and yelling. It was faint, but loud enough to scare me once again towards the cabinet. Before I could reach it, an explosion collapsed the hallway back there. Overcome by a primal fear, I collapsed in a corner and just closed my eyes. That's when I met him. A tribal human. I could barely see him in the armor he was wearing. Panicked, I started screaming and pushing myself into the corner, as if I'd tried hard enough, I would phase through it. The human, however, just stood there for a while, seemingly puzzled. Slowly, speaking in hushed voice, he made himself smaller and approached me. He carefully scratched the fur behind my ears. I never got why until I saw a human cuddling a cat. I can see why I made him think of one. Eventually, I stopped screaming. Seemingly not satisfied with the bare minimum, the human, carefully as possible, opened a pocket and gave me the little locket that was inside. It was made out of warm silver. He pushed it into my hand, looked into my eyes, and spoke with a beautifully deep voice. I didn't understand a word of it, but it felt reassuring enough to not protest when he carried me in his arms and started to slowly run towards the docking bay. He never made it there. A few hallways away, a group of pirates noticed us and followed in pursuit. Sprinting as fast as he could, we turned into the last hallway. At the end, other humans started running towards us to help. It wouldn't be enough. The hallway was too long. The pirates were too close. The human set me down on the ground and beckoned me to run. He himself grabbed his gun and turned back. I never saw him again. It took me a very long time to open the locket, and took me even longer to understand what was inside. There was a picture of a younger man and a small note. It said, "Love you, Henry." It was that man that eventually found me down on Earth. It was that man that raised me to be the man I am today. And he never asked for that locket back, not once. It's true what they taught me. Humans are a tribal people, and I am a part of that tribe. End of story. Story number 2. Temper, written by Foxcorp. New Elan had been a stubborn thorn in the galaxy's side for far too long. For over 200 years, the planet exported nothing but terrorism and instability. In 3489 AD, the human contingent of Gulfleet was dispatched to deal with the insurrectionist cells on the planet's surface, once and for all. The Nulians, the species that originated on Olan and had later colonized New Olan, had finally caved to galactic pressure and allowed peacekeepers to stabilize the region. The Nulians' own strike groups were often corrupt, leading to orbital bombardment to often miss the central hubs of insurgent activity. The Nulians and the rest of the galaxy knew the humans could get the job done, and were counting on an efficient and spectacular end to the stain on the galaxy at large. Contrary to what the Nulians had feared, humanity was taking great care to not inflict damage to civilian areas. This care and conservative application of orbital firepower are what led to the infamous events of March 25th, 3489 to occur, mostly without a hitch. There was one hitch, however, that went down in galactic history, not for its failure, but for its overwhelming impact on one particular area's geography. While the airborne insurgent, spearheaded by the illustrious Combined Special Operations Unit, performed surgical strikes on insurgent cells within urban areas, a 250-strong tactical operations group bombarded less crowded areas of terrorists concentrating from orbit. The capital ship within this group, the UNE Wisconsin, was busy targeting hotbeds across the entire continent of Rylus when a lone shot from a planetary defense cannon slammed into one of its secondary batteries. The shot was able to puncture the ship's shields and went through 7 inches of armor plating. Only the 3 gunners in the second battery were injured, suffering from quite extreme tinnitus for roughly 2 days. The secondary battery itself was not affected. Captain Aaron, commander of the UNE Wisconsin, was very affected. He and everyone else on the ship could only be described as absolutely unhinged by the reporter on board the ship at the time, and the crew promptly moved to file a complaint with the operator of the planetary defense cannon. 24 of Wisconsin's main batteries targeted the exact coordinates of the insolent cannon at once and fired with extreme prejudice. Even the secondary batteries stopped targeting their assigned regions and opened up on the general area where the cannon once stood to join in on the fun. Even the battery hit by the cannon opened up, actually shooting for at least 15 minutes longer than everyone else, because the gunners couldn't hear the order to cease fire until the runner was able to tell them in person. After a roughly 20-minute concussive therapy session, the shooting from the UNE Wisconsin ceased. The UNE Bat Out of Hell, one of Wisconsin's escorts, sent only 2 words to the raging giant in response: "Temper, temper." Word of incident spread fast across the region, and soon after the entire galaxy. The response of the UNE Wisconsin had gone down into legend, but the actions of the defense cannon puzzled many until the crew of investigators reached the 2-mile-deep, 5-mile-wide crater where said cannon once stood. Roughly 2 millimeters of torn fabric were found a mile away from the crater's edge. After substantial forensic analysis, they were found to be 100% matched to one of the many armbands worn by insurgent forces. The current theory is that the defense cannon operator was bribed to fire upon human forces in orbit by a local insurgent cell. Logs from that day were also revealed that a dozen of other defense cannons had also received monetary transactions from shady sources. But the operators of these cannons had little more common sense and didn't fire on any human ships when push came to shove. 274 years later, and the human intervention is still recognized as a total success. It left New Orleans as one of the most stable planets within the local area, and the tale of humanity's precision, care, and overwhelming firepower lives on through a great multitude of lakes and statues, none more impressive than the aptly named Lake Wisconsin itself. End of story. Story number 3. Business Dealings with Humans, written by Hitchingpotamus. Orcanard sighed as he looked at the flyer. More junk mail, like he didn't have enough to do. Still, might be worth a laugh to read it before tossing it out. Greetings, valued colleague. What if I told you the riches the humans have offered for useless territory were in fact only a fraction of what they could pay? What if I told you they can and will pay more? With this one secret developed from the revolutionary findings of noted Aquitanian University xenobiologist Flipavu, learn how to get the most out of your dealings with these strange beings. Slots will fill up fast, so reserve your spot now. At only 565 Xenoi per individual, you can't afford to pass it up. Orcanet sighed. Bestseller, get in here. His secretary squirmed as she entered the office, dropping so low he thought she might be going to try and dig through the floor. What is it? She looked at the flyer he left floating between them. Sir, I just know you have the meeting with the human representative next month and... They're all the same, he intoned with force. Some crazy theory or another as to why humans always want the places where nothing can live. The big rocks. What's this idiot's idea? He was so agitated that he was swimming in circles at this point. She spat off her chuff nervously and floated between them. I know this sounds odd, but hear me out. He says the humans evolved on a big rock, that their planet has more of them than most, and they live on them, above the planet. She couldn't be serious. How would they breathe then? And there is no water up there to circulate through gills. Come on, Bacilla, you're smarter than this. The theory is that they have an organ called lungs, and that they can take oxygen out of gas, she said, haltingly. All Akernard could do was stare at her. Several seconds passed in silence, when he began shaking with amusement. Lungs! He spat out. Well, that would be good for a laugh after all. All right, we're done. Just don't bring me any more of this craziness. End of story. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.